So thick was the miasma of mistrust in the Red Keep and the court after the discovery of the plot to assassinate King Aegon III, and the bloody investigation that followed, that King Aegon did not leave Maegor's Holdfast for 6 more days after his brother Viserys unravelled Lord Rowan's false confession. No one could get the damaged boy king to leave his fortress. Not his queen, not his brother, even the full mushroom tried to convince the king to rejoin the court. King Aegon was left alone, trapped in his own solitude, talking to no one, not even eating the meagre meals his own queen would bring to him. It was only when he saw Grand Maester Munkin send forth the murder of ravens on the 7th day, summoning 20 loyal lords to King's Landing, did King Aegon allow the bridge of Maegor's Holdfast to be lowered once again. They had run so short of food within the Holdfast that Queen Daenerys had begun to cry herself to sleep at night, and 2 of her ladies were so weak from hunger that they had to be carried across the dry moat. They were so impoverished they did not have the energy to eat solid food, and had to be fed soup and stew for several days before they had the strength to even feed themselves. By the time the king himself emerged from Maegor's Holdfast, somehow at his own strength, Lord Graceford had already named his names. Many of the traitors had been seized, others had fled, and Marsden Waters, Mervyn Flowers, and Lucas Laygood were all dead. Soon thereafter, the shell of a man who was once Tadas Rowan once more took up residence in the Tower of the Hand, but it was plain to all that his lordship was in no fit state to resume his duties as Hand of the King. The things that had been done to him in the dungeons had broken him. The torture he endured broke him not only physically, but damaged his mental faculties as well. One moment he might seem his old self, hale and hearty, only to begin weeping uncontrollably the next minute. Mushroom, who could be as cruel as he was clever, would mock the old man, accusing him of outlandish crimes to elicit even more absurd confessions from him. I do recall that one night I made him confess to the doom of Valyria, says the dwarf in his testimony. The court roared with laughter, but as I look back upon it now, I blush for shame. In truth, Lord Rowan would never recover from all he had endured. After a moon's turn, with Lord Rowan showing little or no sign of improvement, Grand Maester Munkin managed to persuade the reluctant king to relieve him of his office. Rowan set out for his seat at Golden Grove, promising to return to King's Landing once he had recovered his health, but he died upon the road in the company of 2 of his sons. The rest of that year, the Grand Maester served as both regent and hand, for the realm required governance, and Aegon had still not reached the age of manhood. As a maester, chained and sworn to serve, Munkin did not feel it was his place to pass judgment on high lords and anointed knights, however, so the accused traitors languished in the black cells until at very least a new hand was in place, able to pass judgment on their crimes. As the old year waned and gave way to the new, lord after lord arrived at King's Landing, answering the king's summons. The ravens had done their work, though never formally called a great council, as they were not summoned to resolve a succession dispute. The gathering of lords in 136 AC was the largest assembly of nobles in the 7 kingdoms since the old King Jaehaerys had summoned the lords of the realm to Harrenhal in 101 AC to help in the choosing of his own heir after the death of Prince Aemon and Prince Balon, his first and second sons. King's Landing was soon full to the point of bursting, to the delight of the city's innkeeps, whores and merchants. It was the busiest the city had been since long before the Dance of the Dragons. Most of those in attendance came from the Crownlands, the Riverlands, the Stormlands, and the Vale, where Lord Alan Oakenfist and Bloody Ben Blackwood had at last forced the Gilded Falcon, the Mad Heir, and the Bronze Giant, and all of their supporters to bend the knee to do homage to Joffrey Arryn, as their liege, Gunther Royce, Quentin Corbray, and Isambard Arryn, were among those accompanying Lord Arryn to the gathering, along with the new Lord Arryn himself. Joanna Lannister sent a cousin and 3 bannermen to speak for the West. Torren Manderly sailed down from White Harbour with 20 knights and cousins, and Lionel Hightower and the Lady Sam rode up from Oldtown with a tale of 600 strong. The largest retinue was that accompanying Lord Unwin Peake, who brought 1,000 of his own men and 500 sellswords. The full mushroom noted that this is not the actions of an innocent man. There, beneath the shadow of the empty Iron Throne, as King Aegon did not choose to come to court, the lords attempted to choose new regents to rule until his grace could come of age. After meeting for more than a fortnight, they were no closer to an accord than when they had begun. Without the strong hand of the king to guide them, Some lords gave vent to old grievances, and half-healed wounds of the dance began to bleed afresh. The strong men had too many enemies, whilst the lesser lords were looked down upon for being poor or weak. Finally, in despair at reaching an agreement, Grand Maester Munkin proposed that the 3 regents be chosen by a lot. When Prince Viserys added his voice to Munkin's, the proposal was adopted. The lots fell to William Shaftesbury, Mark Merryweather, and Laurent Grandison, of whom it could truly be said that they were as inoffensive as they were undistinguished. The selection of the king's hand was a matter of more importance, however, and one that the lords assembled were unwilling to leave to the new regents. There were those, chiefly from the Reach, who argued that Unwin Peake be asked to serve as the hand once more, but they were quickly shouted down when Prince Viserys declared that his brother would prefer a younger man, and one less likely to fill the court with traitors. Alan Velarion's name was also put forward, but he was deemed too young. Kermit Tully and Blenjicott Blackwood were spurned for the same reasons. Instead, the lords turned to the Northman, Torren Manderley, Lord of White Harbour, a man unknown to many of them, but for that very reason without enemies south of the neck, save perhaps Unwin Peake, whose memory was long. "Aye, I'll do it," Lord Torrens said, "but I need a man who is good with coin if I'm to deal with these Lysini thieves and their bloody bank." Then up stood the Oakenfist, to offer the name of Isambard Arryn, the gilded falcon of the Vale. To appease Lord Peake and his supporters, Gedmund Peake the Greataxe was named Lord Admiral and Master of Ships. It was said that Alan Velaryon was more bemused than angry, and declared that the choice was a good one. As Sir Gedmund loves paying for ships, I love sailing them. So Reynard Ruskin became Lord Commander of the King's Guard, while Sir Adrian Thorne was chosen to command the Gold Cloaks. He was formerly the captain of the Lion Gate. Thorne was the only one of Lucas Leggett's 7 captains not accused of involvement in the plot. And so it was done. All that remained for Aegon III was to put his seal to it, which he did without demur the next morning, before retreating once again to the solitary splendour of his chambers.